All right, we will now call to order for the Legislation and Rules Committee for today, Tuesday, October 10th, 2023. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Alderman Orion.
Here.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Here.
Alderwoman Velasquez.
Present.
Chair Valmer. We have 3 present. We have a quorum.
All right, great. Thank you, Madam Clerk. For our first order of business, looks like line item 3, approval of the minutes for the meeting on Tuesday, September 19th. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All
No,
right,
it was the approval of the minutes from September the 12th.
September the 12th.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so our first order of business is approval of minutes for the meeting on September 12th, 2023. So I will now entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'm sorry, point of order. I just want to make sure because our agenda does say the 19th. So I want to make sure we get it right.
And the approval minutes, it does say the minutes of Tuesday, September the 12th. I can go ahead and verify that. That's what I'm reading.
Yeah, I want us to be incorrect because when I printed out the agenda for today, it says approve minutes of Tuesday, September 19th. I'm trying to see remember when our last meeting was.
Okay, give me one moment, okay?
Okay, just so we in order.
Thank you, Alder Lady.
Mhm.
Tracy.
While you're doing that, our league Metro president, Victoria Turner, says she can't get in. So.
I'm in now, Kathleen.
Oh, okay. All right.
It just took a while.
Okay.
Thank you, though.
Yeah, I pulled it up in the Google Drive too. It says September 19th.
It's the 19th,
Okay, thank you.
okay?
Okay.
So the approval of September the 19th.
I'll entertain a motion for approval of the minutes for September 19th, 2023.
I move that we approve the minutes from Tuesday, September 19th, 2023.
Second. All right, the move has been seconded. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Alderman Orion.
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Aye.
Vice Chair Velasquez.
Aye.
Chair Valmer. We have 3 aye votes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. According to our agenda, we have on board bills to review. The committee will discuss and take public comment on the following. Board Bill number 87 presented by Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Alderman Clark Hubbard, would you like to please proceed and present this bill to us?
Thank you so much, Madam Vice Chair. Madam Clerk, can you please read the summary for Board Bill 87?
Will do. Board Bill number 87, introduced by Alderwoman Shameen Clark Hubbard, an ordinance repealing Section 2 of Ordinance number 71410 and Section 2.08.010, the revised code of the City of St. Louis concerning the nomination of candidates for the offices of Mayor, Comptroller, President of the Board of Aldermen and Aldermen, and enacting a new Section 2.08.010 to eliminate the primary elections for said offices if 2 or less candidates have filed declarations of intent pursuant to Section 2.08.050 of the revised code of the City of St. Louis, or if 2 or more candidates have filed declarations of intent and a candidate or candidates withdrawals pursuant to Section 2.08 8.400 of the revised code of the city of St. Louis, leaving two or less candidates, in which cases the two candidates or candidate shall advance to the general election.
All right, thank you so much, Madam Clerk. So essentially what this does will be eliminate the primary when you have only two qualified candidates in these verified and qualified candidates in these elections, similar to some other elections that we do here in the city that go advance straight to the general. And essentially it's just better practices and saves money for the city. So with that, I would like to open up and have my guests speak on behalf. I think we'll start with our Board of Elections directors and then move to anyone else from the public. I know we have League of Women Voters, but there may be others from the public that have signed up to speak on behalf of Board Bill 87.
We will have to swear them in. Thank you. Okay, so we have Leo Stoff and Ben Borgmeyer.
Correct. Yep.
Do you affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? It'll help you God.
I do.
Yes,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
there you want to go?
So first on the list, we have Ben Borgmeyer.
Hello, do I start talking?
Sure.
Okay, so last year we did have that special election. It was September, so it was strange for a lot of reasons. So maybe the first election as far as a general in September that the city might have ever had. Gary could probably speak to that, but it was just, so in that case, didn't know initially how many candidates were going to file. In the end, there was two candidates who filed. Of course, with the system we have now in the city, the top two candidates go through to the general. So in a case where there's only two candidates, in a lot of ways, it didn't make sense to have the election, but we did because we were required by the city code to do so. We ended up spending in that election, I think me and Gary just did the math on it, but it was around $100,000 in that election, which is a bargain, really. But, in that we did a lot of things different in that election that we normally would do. In that case, we reduced the number of polling places. We used ballot on demand, so there wasn't printing costs. And the majority of the cost came from poll workers, approximately 68,000. So that 100,000 is a fraction of what we would, if there was a true citywide election, it could, the city could spend of their share 200,000 with the entire cost of the election being anywhere upwards of 500 to 600,000. Also, I think voters were generally kind of confused about why they were voting in the election as well. So I think if this bill was to pass, I think it would do two things. It would spare expense as far as public money that could be spent elsewhere. And then second, that it might make things less confusing for voters, which is always a good thing.
And Gary, I didn't know if you wanted to add anything to that. Thank you so much, Director Borgmeyer.
Sure. Let me just kind of emphasize what Ben was saying. The September 13, 2022 election obviously was something very unusual, but it's a good example because that election cost us over $100,000. And in terms of voter turnout, there was only 6% voter turnout for that election, in part, I think, because voters realized that no matter who they voted for in September of 2022, both candidates were going to be on the November election ballot. Voter turnout was much higher on that November election, although that was also a general election, so you're not exactly comparing apples to oranges. But we've had citywide elections in the past that have run upwards of $350,000 to $550,000 and more. And as recently as April, I think it was, of, April 5 of 2022, there was a special election called for the city to vote on two propositions. One was Prop R and the other was a bond issue. So those were the only things on the ballot. And that election cost $353,000. So potentially, if you would have another situation like we had with respect to the vacancy in the presidency of the Board of Aldermen, citywide election can run 300, 350, 400,000 and up. And that becomes a city expense unless there are other entities that are sharing the cost. It's also interesting, I think we did, just looking at some voter turnout, earlier this year, we had the March primary and the April general. And again, it's hard to compare apples to oranges, but every race in the general election pulled more voters than every race in the primary. So I guess my point is that when you have a situation such as is proposed in this bill, where you have two candidates or one, it just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to have a primary involving those candidates when they're both, either one or both are going to go on the general election ballot, and the candidates involved can focus more on the general election than expending energy and resources on both a primary and a general. So I think from our standpoint at the election board, we think the passage of this bill would be a good idea, both cost-wise and maybe encouraging more voters to come out and vote and help eliminate voter confusion.
Thank you so much, Director Stoff.
You're welcome.
Great. Does anybody from the, I guess we should go in order of seniority for questions. Alderman Lady, you would be the most senior. I'm guessing you don't have any, do you have any questions for Mr. Stott or Mr. Borgmeyer?
Actually, Alderman Ryan is the senior.
Oh, I'm sorry,
We
sorry,
come in
Alderman
together. We
Okay,
did
Madam
come in together. So I know it's confusing sometimes, but we're in the same class, but he's ahead of me in seniority.
Okay, I'll get that right
And if
next.
he's not available for questions now, we can possibly, unless you have to move on to the League of Women Voters and come back to him.
Alderman Narayan, do you have any questions for Mr. Borgmeyer, Mr. Stott, or the Board of Elections?
No questions. Thank you.
No, the only question I had, I think, Mr. Stoff, you basically answered it, was what's the impact on voter turnout? I mean, I know it's hard to say, but just from kind of being on the ground during that, I mean, it seemed people were a little confused, but also, you know, like wondering, of course, we think every vote every time matters, but they seem to have questions on if it did with some of the primary races.
Well, I think you're correct. We agree every voter should vote at every election, but the reality of life is, I think, well, there was only a 6.2% voter turnout in that particular primary for the presidency of the Board of Aldermen. I think that was an important race, and it was disappointing that only 6.2% came out, but at the same time, voters knew that both candidates were going to be on the general election ballot.
And I guess just this one question for you both, and then this I think is the final one for me, but is there any just in other municipalities where they've taken the primary, you know, they've done something like this? Because I know St. Louis is a unique place, but I doubt that we're the only ones. Has there been a change in voter turnout, or have you heard, has it been, I mean, the numbers make sense, but does it look like it saved money? Has it worked for other places that you've seen?
I can speak to, so St. Charles actually has a provision in their charter, which almost is identical to the bill that Alderwoman Clark Hubbard is proposing here, where there is a primary only in the situation where there's more than two. So it's I think they worked it in there upfront as far as understanding what the how unnecessary it is to have a primary if both go to the general. So I don't know of any doing away with the primary like that already exists, but just that provision in St. Charles's charter.
Okay, great. Thank you. I have no further questions. Sounds like no one on the committee. Last call for questions for these gentlemen. Okay, great. Thank you. Alder Lady, you said that you have another League of Women Voters would like to testify.
I think they did want to testify. I'm not sure if they heard because it went out a little bit and if the clerk can swear them in.
All three of us, yeah.
Okay, so we have, I see two people with the same, we have a Joan Hubbard, am I correct?
That would be me, but I'm gonna defer to Kathleen.
Okay, and so the other lady name is Kathleen.
Kathleen Farrell. Oh, I don't know why they put Joan Hubbard on me. I was.
That's
Kathleen
okay. I
before.
can correct that for you. Give me one moment.
Okay, and also, our co-president of the whole Metro League, Victoria Turner, is here as well.
But
Okay.
I also, Kathleen is the lead of our city unit and she will be making some remarks on behalf of the league.
Okay, Kathleen is Kathleen.
That's correct.
And your last name, Kathleen?
Farrell, F is in Frank, ARRELL.
Okay, so we're going to swear in Miss Joan Hubbard, Miss Kathleen Farrell, and Victoria Turner. Could you raise your right hands for me, please? Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you so much. So we're going to begin with Miss Kathleen Farrell.
Yes, I just want to make a couple remarks in support of this. First of all, thank you very much to Alderperson Shamim Clark Hubbard for introducing this. I think it's an important fix for approval voting. And there are three reasons why the league supports making these changes. The first one is that the League of Women Voters Volunteers have polled voters at every single election about how approval voting is working for them. And the number one complaint is exactly this, that we don't need to duplicate elections and that it causes confusion. And so we try to listen to those voters and then try to support this change, which is being proposed by Alderperson Clark Hubbard. The second thing is that it saves money, and it saves money for both the election board, but also for candidates. I think that Alderperson Clark Hubbard was too humble to say she actually was one of the people who was affected by this. And if you think about it, particularly in local elections like this, I don't think candidates should have to run two elections through no fault of their own. And so I think it also saves candidates money. And I think that's really important because they're donors and the voters don't like to see this kind of waste. And so I think that that's very important. The third thing is that I do think it will increase voter engagement. I just wanted to make a couple points about some of the voter turnout statistics that we've reviewed on the Board of Elections website. And that is that there was an increase in voter participation if you had more than two candidates in the March primary elections in both the 2021 race, the first time we did this before we decreased the number of wards, and also for the most part, with the exception of one ward, in the 2023 race. Our goal with this whole process when we supported it early on in 2020 was to increase voter participation and also to increase candidate participation so that there would be more voices there to be heard. So we're going to continue working on this, and as all of us really know, the problem with voting is not fraud or anything like that. It's getting people to vote. And so this year, the league is devoting itself, and I hope that we will be partners with all of you and the folks also on here who are concerned citizens to try to educate the public to say, look, this is our own backyard, local government matters a lot, and that we need to vote in all of these elections and prepare to vote for them. So I don't know, Victoria or Joan, is there anything else we should add?
No, I think you covered our points very well, Kathleen. This is especially difficult to explain to new and infrequent voters. And these are the people that we're trying to engage in the process. So we fully support this.
As do I. I think this is more in line with what we see on in elections nationally and statewide. You know, you have the primary and you have the election, only if there are additional people that are running in the campaign. So this is good. This is good, Shameen. Thank you.
All right, does anyone, do any committee members have any questions for either, either of our guests? Okay, I don't have any questions either. Thank you both for testifying, and for clearly your commitment to democracy and the voting process here. Alderman Clark Hubbard, anything else that you want to say, or any other testimony for this bill?
I'm not sure if any of the other people on the call, any of the other participants on the call had comments about Board Bill 87 or not. I will want to make sure before we move forward. Or any of our other colleagues. I don't see any of them as well. No, so with that, I want to thank Ms. Kathleen. Being humble, yeah, I guess, but I also wanted to make sure the importance of hearing it from other voices and the other impacted, how it's citywide, this impact on here, and of course fiscally, and so I will add that as a candidate that went through that, you're absolutely correct. I mean, to the contrary, as much as we go out and say every vote counts, I literally couldn't count how many times I heard at the door that this vote doesn't count. And I'm not gonna vote. And don't, voter fatigue is real. And if you've been a candidate, again, from the candidate perspective, we get a whole nother version of, somebody just saying my vote doesn't count. I mean, we get sometimes gone off on, don't call my house anymore, don't knock on my door anymore, this vote, so, and not only the confusion part, but also the genuine fatigue, and wanting to make sure that they know, that we're listening to this part. And so that's why I feel I'm glad to be a part of this, moving this legislation forward for the betterment, just best practices, and just for the city of St. Louis in this election process. So with that, I would like to see if no more questions are asked. I would absolutely like to ask for favorable consideration and a due pass recommendation for Board Bill 87.
Well, I would just like to be added as a Alderman Narayan.
Yeah, I was going to make that motion, but I did not mean to cut you off, Madam Vice Chair.
Asked to be added as a co-sponsor and just of this bill, Alderman Clark Hubbard, and just, as a candidate during one of those similar types of elections. I heard the same things at the door, and it's hard to convince people it does matter. I promise it does. So I think, for all the things folks have already said in the call, I think it's a good move, I think, for the people running and for the people working the polls and at the Board of Elections. So, okay, with that, Alderman Narayan.
And Madam Clerk, could you please also add me as a co-sponsor? And with that, I move that we pass Board Bill 87 out of committee with a due pass recommendation.
I second.
Previous row.
Clerk, can we now take the roll call?
Well, she did previous roll.
Okay, sorry.
And there
I was
was no objection to previous roll.
Bumps on this first one. I really was.
So I guess we're gonna be moving on to, do we have item?
We have, I guess we have line item 5 resolutions to review. We don't have any. We have one line item for the Board of Adjustment. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
Yes,
Any discussion? So I guess we will now discuss the approval of the mayor's appointment or reappointment of Mr. George Hitt to the Board of Adjustment. Is Mr. Hitt here?
okay, Mr. Hitt, could you raise your right hand? Do you affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
Mr. Hitt, is there anything that you would like to tell the committee? One, thank you for your willingness to serve. I should start out with that.
I was gonna just say thank you.
Well, thank you too.
Thank you, Director Staff.
Mr. Hitt, is there anything you'd like to tell the board, or really this is a public meeting too, about your this appointment and why you'd like to serve?
Well, I've been a part of the city. I originally came in with TWA in 1986. So I have been here since that time. And through TWA, they first put me on as an alternate to this board. And then eventually, as time went on, progressed, I became a permanent. And now I'm going back to alternate. I'm 78 years old. I have Wednesdays off. And that's one of the criterias of being able to show up every week when you're needed. And I love serving on the board.
Great, thank you, Mr. Hitt. Does any committee members have questions for Mr. Hitt?
Well, I'll just chime in and again with gratitude and thanks to Mr. Hitt, a 10th Ward resident. And I'm proud to serve as his alder lady because of here. You just heard his love for service on the Board of Adjustments. If you don't know what the Board of Adjustments is, it's a very important board here in the city of St. Louis. And I mean, very important. And so the fact that his willingness, as you spoke of, Madam Vice Chair, to serve, I think, and the expertise and the knowledge that he brings with his wisdom to the board, I think is immeasurable. So again, I thank you for continuing to serve and going through this part of the process to be able to be reappointed to the board. Hey, listen, you on your one-off day, you choose to spend it with us. This is a weekly meeting for people that don't know the Board of Adjustment. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I look forward to hopefully my colleagues approving your reappointment.
Thank you so much.
Alderman Narayan, any questions, comments for Mr. Hitt?
No questions. I just want to reiterate the previous statements. Thank you for your service. It's hard to get qualified people to want to volunteer their time for these boards, and so I think it's important that we make sure to express our gratitude to you, Mr. Hitt, for taking the time out of your day over and over and to want to come back for more. So thank you. And like my colleague from the 10th pointed out, I hope that this Friday will confirm you and you can continue your service. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, is there a motion on the floor to approve Mr. Hitt's reappointment to the Board of Adjustments?
I move that we move Mr. Hitt to the full board with a due.
Approval?
I don't know. What's the recommendation here? It's a due approve recommendation. Thank you.
Second.
Previous roll? All right, great. Well, thank you, Mr. Hitt. We will move this recommendation onto the full board this Friday.
Okay. Oh, can I make one other comment? On your
Sure.
board bill 87, I'm one of the 6%ers.
Oh, thank you.
We appreciate it.
All right.
All right, now that we will now move on to line item 7. Looks like there is no written testimony. Just want to double check that, Madam Clerk.
No written testimonies.
All right, then we'll move on to announcements. I have no announcements. Do the members of this committee have any announcements they would like to share?
I'll just say thank you again to the League of Women Voters. I thank the directors before they hopped off the call, and I see some of the League of Women Voters still on the call. Thank you all for your commitment to service as a whole, for the greater good here, and not just our city, but our region, our county, our region, everything, all of the work that you all do. I'd encourage anybody that's watching and tuning in, if you're not already engaged in the work the League of Women Voters do, please engage and help share in the messages and the things that they do in the community. And just also about, we talked about the Board of Adjustments, but note that there are other boards and commissions here at the city of St. Louis that are open and have open seats. And so if you're watching and you want to engage or volunteer your time here at the city of St. Louis the way that Mr. Hitt is re-signing up to do, please go to the website and see wherever your expertise or your passion lies, there may be a seat open on a board or commission for you.
I second that, older lady. Thank you. All right. Excused absences. Do I have a?
I hope that we excuse President Ballmer for necessary absence.
Absolutely, I second.
Previous role.
All right. Well, with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Previous role. Everybody have a blessed day.
Thank you all.
Thank you.